Gazette discussion for 10th August 2021. My name is Harsh Singh and this discussion will contain many interesting articles from the Gazette of Edukemy, our daily newsletter. Now, our discussion is divided in two videos. The first video is on the featured news. Today, the featured news is on India and United Nations Security Council. Now, it is an important event for India to be the chair of United Nations Security Council for the month of August 2021. And therefore, we must understand what is the compelling reason for India to be actually a part of permanent member of the Security Council. So in this article, we will understand, does India actually deserve a position for this permanent membership in Security Council or not? The second, what are the restraining factors? What are the issues because of which India is not able to participate as permanent member? And of course, a solution for the same, right? So this is the featured news. The second video will contain the rest of the articles, which are this day in history. We have dedicated to French Revolution. New snapshots, two important update articles for you. The first one is 5-point framework for the maritime security. This has been revealed by the Prime Minister of India. Now, important to note is that United Nations has got certain agenda for every month's discussion, and India's agenda for this discussion is maritime security, counter-terrorism, and peacekeeping. So this time India has chaired an important meeting for maritime security, held an important discussion, and Prime Minister important some 5-point framework for maritime security. So this is the update article on that. The second one is a Prime Minister's 4-point strategy for increasing India's exports. So this is the second update article, both by the Prime Minister. Image of the day is sheep shed fish. Terms and concept. First terms and concept, update article regarding Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana. The second scheme is an inclusive scheme, PM Daksh. We'll come to know what it is. And the third is faceless assessment scheme by the Income Tax Department. And the fourth one is Chapia mission by NASA. We'll understand what this interesting mission is on. It is about mission to Mars, simulated mission of it. Editorials of the day. The two editorials that we cover for today are Urban Job Guarantee Scheme, just on the lines of Rural Job Guarantee Scheme. And the second one is on labor law reforms, right? So some criticism of the government here in the way it is trying to execute the reforms. The case study of the day is from Odisha. This case is of how Odisha is trying to create disaster resilient infrastructure in the marine ecosystem. So let's start the discussion. We have dedicated this day in history to the French Revolution because it was on this day, August 10th, 1792, that Louis XVI of France was imprisoned. He was imprisoned on the charges of high treason. That means treason against the state, because he could not solve important crises, financial problems, the problems of the poor, the daily poor people. And later, 1 year later, he was also sentenced to death by the National Assembly. What is the most interesting part is the way he was sentenced to death. So he was sentenced to death through guillotine, and a quick understanding about it. Now, guillotine is the procedure in which this triangular shaped axe, it cuts the head away from the body. So it decapitates the body in two different parts. It might seem gross right now. It might seem as very brutal right now, but it was considered one of the most painless forms of death during those times. Why? Because that was the time when killing through cutting, beheading, etc., they were a little more painful, and therefore this was one of the most painful form of death, and it was given to noble persons only, right? And in 1789, through the National Assembly, this person, Joseph Guillotine, he proposed that this form of death, this painless form of death, be given to everybody, and that is why this guillotine, this name guillotine, right? Now, France has been using this form of death penalty until late, right? Until when it actually outlawed capital punishment, right? That means death penalty. So this is the update from France Revolution. Now, this is where we also understand how France was up to its liberty, equality, and fraternity, because it wanted all the normal people also to be executed through equality, right? Although this was a reign of terror during these French Revolution times through the mode of guillotine, right? So this is the update. New snapshot. The first snapshot is on 5-point framework for maritime security. Now, India has become the chair for the United Nations Security Council, and India has three things on mind. First is maritime security, the second one is counter-terrorism, and the third one relates to peacekeeping. And India held a discussion between the member states, right, on maritime security. So when you see this video online, you will see Indian Prime Minister speaking and representative of all the other countries, for example, USA, Russia, Japan, China, speaking on this issue. So now here we will talk about what Prime Minister spoke of. He spoke of the counter-maritime crime measures which India and whole world must adopt. Now, this is in pursuance of the policy, Sagar policy, security of growth of all in the region. Now, this India speaks of since 2015 for the Asia Pacific region, but India extended its policy for the whole world by these 5 important measures. I will help you quickly remember them. So first is India talks of maritime trade, increasing the maritime trade, rights of seafarers, along with that connectivity. So trade and connectivity are 2 important things India focused on, right? So these are 2 parameters. Then dispute, while having this trade, there might be some dispute, they must be resolved through UN clause. This one example. The 4th one is threat against piracy, threat against non-state actors. So dispute and threats are relatable, you can remember them. And the 5th one is, while doing all this, there might be some environmental damage, so preventing the world from the pollution of plastic and oil spills. So these are the 5 broad parameters, themes under which India also spoke of, the Prime Minister spoke of, right? What did the other nations speak of? So we have America spoke of the Black Sea region, right? So let me quickly show you the Black Sea region. Now this is Ukraine in red. Then we have Crimea. Now, right, Crimea was taken back from Ukraine in 2014, right, by military action. Now, this is the reason why Ukraine has got very cold feelings for Russia, because this whole region, Crimea, was taken back by Russia. So we have Black Sea and we have Sea of Azov, and then important Kerch Strait, right, which connects Crimea and Russia. So now these are the 3 areas in which there is increased military presence of Russia, and this can be one reason for the impending crisis, the upcoming crisis in the world. And therefore America says that Russia has got increased presence in the maritime domain in Black Sea region. I have mentioned that. America spoke of China being an increasing participant in the South Asia region, where it is not actually holding any own territory. In America also spoke of Iran having conducted an exercise against MV Mercer Street. This is one of the ships which was shot by Iran, allegedly shot by Iran. This is what America is mentioning. Israel also mentioned the same. So America spoke about all this. China, on the other hand, spoke of Quad, right? It spoke of such associations which are not inclusive in nature. China also spoke against Japan, where Japan released the nuclear discharge from Fukushima in the ocean region. So this is what was China's allegation. Now this is where you must remember how India tackled this kind of issues around the world, right? Through idealistic approach. So I mentioned to you what the world spoke of and how India dealt with this. This is ideal answer writing, right? Now you can also remember we had done a feature article on deep ocean mission, right? They also relate to Sagar, right? India's increased presence in maritime domain, right? So why was this discussion important? It was important because it is one of the few discussions where democratic participation of all the countries happened, right? So usually there is dominance of the P5, dominance of certain important countries, but here a lot of people got the opportunity to speak, and you can see that in the conversation discussion happening. And India will also conduct similar discussions on counterterrorism and on the domain of peacekeeping, because India has to maintain these 3 agenda, maritime security and these 2, and India is conducting open discussions with country. So this is the best part about this significance of India's participation, right? First snapshot done. Snapshot 2 is on Prime Minister's 4-point strategy to achieve $400 billion export economy for India by 2022, right? So now in the 75 years of independence, now the Prime Minister has said that we must have 75 new products and destinations so that we are able to export, right? And have this kind of economy for export, right? $400 billion. Now, for this, he suggests very simple strategy to remember, right? He says we have to increase manufacturing, and we have to increase logistics, right? What is logistics? The travel and the movement of the manufactured product, coordination between the exporters and the government. This is the 3rd component. And 4th, we have to have more markets. So very simple 4 points. So these are the 4 points which have to be focused, and this is where we will understand what are some important government schemes in the particular project. So the foreign trade policy 2015-20, it spoke of an important scheme called as exports from India scheme, right? Now this policy, why are we still studying this policy? Because this policy was extended during Corona times to this 2021 as well, right? Now the first important scheme here was exports from India scheme. Now in this scheme, if an exporter is exporting a particular product, even when there is infrastructure inefficiency, government is trying to give them certain benefits. For example, the benefits are called as duty credit scripts. Now, these exporters are also importers. They export some product and they import some other product. The creators are somebody else, but their job is to specialize in export and import, right? So when they export and they help increase jobs, when they help in increase of jobs and increasing in exports, increase GDP, the government gives them some of the other form of credits. For example, these credits are called as duty credit scrips. When they import some other item, this is when they can encash this credit. So there will be lesser excise duty, there will be lesser custom duty in case they are importing something else or creating another product, right? So this is what was the scheme earlier until 2020, when the government understood that this is against WTO norms, right? So the government first of all reduced the claims. Less than 5,000 crore only can be compensated here, right? But later it was stopped, and later we had this duty exemption and remission scheme. Now this is the scheme under which the government is giving input tax credit to the parties. What is input tax credit? This is the credit so that the person is not taxed twice, right? If they are creating a product, right, and they have taken in some products. Now, for example, if it is a restaurant owner and if they have taken vegetables, they have paid taxes. If they have taken some important spices and ingredients, they have paid taxes. Now, when they're creating a product and they're selling it, they also pay taxes. So, to be able to ensure that they don't pay tax twice, this input tax credit is given by the government. So, this is what is being given by the government in this particular case. Then we had agriculture export policy, another scheme by the government to double the agriculture exports, right? Then market access initiative, where the tough places where market access is very tough, where there are new markets, government is helping to campaign, to have market surveys conducted in those areas, to have international trade fairs, set up showrooms, right, and conduct these kind of exercises. So government is helping in market access initiative. Now this is where you have to remember the names of these particular schemes, especially duty exemption and remission scheme and market access initiative, right? Then we have trade infrastructure for export scheme and Niryat Bandhu. So what is Niryat? Ayat means incoming, and Niryat means export. So export Bandhu scheme. So this is the scheme in which the government is trying to mentor the potential exporters, right? So their holistic understanding about how to export, what area to expertise in, where should you conduct surveys so that your export item is a hit product. So these are the part of Niryat Bandhu scheme. Trade infrastructure for export scheme. This is where government tries to create trade infrastructure. What kind of infrastructure? So this infrastructure could be warehouses for export, border hats. We keep studying about them. India, Bangladesh, India, Nepal border hats. Then custom infrastructure. So if one has more infrastructure, more trading will happen at the ICPs, integrated checkposts. So these are certain important government schemes related to export and import, right? So India export is around 20% of the GDP, and therefore India must increase the proportion of export in the GDP. Also, India exports only certain kind of products. For example, petroleum, right? We refine the petroleum and we send it back to the Arab nations and other places. Gems, jewelry, engineering products, pharmaceutical and IT. India must increase the products, and India also has only major players who are importing India's products, USA, China, UAE, etc. Right? India must increase its destinations as well, right? So, for example, mining, coal, defense, railways, these are all now export oriented, and therefore, since demand is increasing, India must diversify its export base and the regions in which it is exporting, right? So this is the snapshot 2. Image of the day is on sheep shed fish, right? Why is it called a sheep shed? Because you see, this is the fish and this is the teeth of the sheep. Very similar, right? Now this teeth is very similar to human teeth as well. Why? Because this animal eats non-vegetarian food as well, just like humans do, and therefore human teeth arrangement and the way the teeth are, they are arranged very similar to the humans, right? So this is a fish which is found in Atlantic Ocean. What is the most important part here is to note, right, that this ship seems to be smiling, and we must keep smiling, right, in times of difficulties as well. Terms and concept. The first term and concept for today is Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana. Right, so the first difference is between Sansad and Sansad. Sansad means parliament and Sansad means member of parliament, right? So Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana was initiated in the year 2014-15, right? So this was the time when the government said that every member of parliament has to select three 3 villages to develop, ideal villages to develop, and later 5 more villages to develop by the year 2024. So the main idea has been to develop around 6,000 villages, in 2.5 lakh gram panchayats, right? So these will be the model villages which will later replicate, which will later spur development in the nearby villages as well. So 6,500 out of 2.65 lakh gram panchayats, right, by the year 2024. So this is the main idea. So 3 villages up to 2019, and then later 5 more villages by 2024. Important to note, where is the funding coming from? Funding is also coming from MP LAD scheme, right, local area development scheme of the member of parliament, right? So the agenda has been the personal agenda, human agenda, social, economic, so giving life skills, right, increasing social sector spendings, increasing spending on health, nutrition. The parliament member can initiate projects in any of these areas. Right, now you will also, since you're technically oriented, you would say, where do these parliamentarians choose their villages from? So a Lok Sabha member can have a village selected from their own constituency, right? A Rajya Sabha member, then which place? From the particular state from where they have been chosen, right? What about nominated member? So any village from the whole country. So nominated members of the Rajya Sabha, 12 of them, they can have any village selected throughout the country. And then intelligent you would also question, what about the urban, right? MPs from Delhi area, urban areas. So they can select a village from the nearby, right, nearby locality. So this is how this is divided. Now, the second is an important scheme called as PM Daksh. Now, Daksh, what is the meaning of Daksh? Daksh means Dakshata or Kushalta Sampan Hitgrahi, right? So let me make clear to you what is the meaning of Dakshata. Dakshata means dexterity. Dexterity means having skill, right? So Kushalta is competence. Hitgrahi stands for the beneficiary, right? So Pradhan Mantri scheme for the beneficiary and to develop competence and dexterity. So developing skill and competence. This is a scheme which is special scheme for the marginalized sections, right? Those sections which are from the poorer backgrounds, from the tribal backgrounds, sanitation workers, waste pickers, manual scavengers, etc. So a portal has been developed, and also an app altogether has been developed, so that these people can be registered in that app. They can also train themselves for particular skill development. So reskilling, skilling, short-term training programs also will be a part of this particular Daksh scheme. So do remember that this is being initiated by Ministry of Skill Development, right? So PM Daksh. Snapshot 3 is faceless assessment scheme by the income tax department. Now this is a very good scheme for people who are paying taxes, because this is a faceless form of intervention in which if people have some issues with tax department, if they want some clarification, right, this all can be passed through emails, right? So no physical interface is done, and this is how we create more transparency, objectivity in the whole system, right? There will be less corruption in the system, right? So this is the main agenda of this particular scheme. Also, all the kind of the issues that come into these email addresses, they can be artificially made to channelize, because there could be various other issues. For example, verification is one issue, assessment of taxation is another issue, then technical units. So all the issues can be segregated into different departments and then channelized. So this will also help in increasing the efficiency of taxation department. Snapshot 4 is CHAPIA mission by NASA, right? So a simple question could be asked, what is CHAPIA related to? So CHAPIA is Crew Health and Performance Exploration Analog, right? If you dream of living in space, so this is the mission. If you dream of living in a 1700 square foot house, this is the mission you must participate in. So 4 people will be selected all around, and NASA will train them to be able to live in a simulated environment, not a perfect environment. It will be simulated to Mars environment, right, where they will be subjected to less gravity, spacewalks, scientific research, and virtual reality, right? They will also be subjected to robotic control, and this is the one in which people will be empowered. The NASA will be empowered to understand the issues in Mars, because this whole simulation will be carried out, and 4 people will be part of this mission, right? So this is a simulated mission, not the actual mission, and 3D printer has been used to create this block of home. So this is called as Mars Dune Alpha. Mars Dune Alpha is the home which has kitchen, fitness area, working, crop growth, etc., right? So this is the area which has been created, right? So this is the update article here. editorials of the day. The first editorial for today is on urban job guarantee scheme, right? Just similar to what happens in Manrega, in the rural job guarantee scheme, the Committee on Labor has spoken for providing urban job guarantee as well, right? It says that the government did not plan the lockdown and a lot of people in the urban area also became jobless. It also presents an important statistics by CMIE report. It says that 65% people of the 20 million people who lost jobs between January-March 2020 and 2021, 65% of this category of people were from urban areas. And therefore, important is to have a scheme for the urban mandatory employment as well. It also points to the PLFS report, very much in news, right? So periodic labor force survey report, it says that it shows the important graphs where it says that yes, we have seen that there have been jobs now. See, this is the time which is very much reflective of the pandemic, right? So suddenly there were job losses, but we do see some recovery right now. So the article says that this recovery, one should not get very happy with this kind of recovery. Why? Because this is not quality recovery. We also discussed this in the editorials in the past, that this kind of recovery is of the self-employed people in low quality jobs, right? This is also recovery of the people who are in disguised employment, female force, right? People who are employed by self and they do not have enough income. So this kind of recovery cannot be considered as very much credible. Also, important reports suggest that this 365-day survey is not good. The 7-day survey must be taken into account. Why? Because in the 7-day survey, the casual labor, right, the informal labor, the women who are working at only certain points, so there this survey accounts for them also. In 365 days, they all will be considered employed. But in 7-day survey, they will not be considered employed. So therefore, these important ways of survey must be also accounted for, because they are more accurate of representation, right? There has been a rise in unpaid workers, right, during these times. The idea of this article is also to mention that the working days have reduced. The wages also have reduced for laborers. And the state governments have played some role in providing employment, but this is not sufficient because they will need more funds from the central government. So this is the update from this editorial. The second editorial is on labor law reforms. The government initiated 4 labor codes. They were on the code on wages, industrial relations, social security, and safety, working conditions, and health of the laborers, right? So these rules were notified, but they were not executed. The rules were drafted for them to be later executed, but it has not been acted upon right now. So this is where the article criticizes the government. The article says that Supreme Court has enforced certain important principles on the government. For example, the execution of one nation, one ration card scheme towards the whole country. So, right, so Supreme Court said that 400 million workers, right, informal workers must be into a database, a national database for unorganized workers. This is itself a humongous task. This is what the article says. The idea is to have registration of construction workers, right, so that the Aadhaar seeding of the construction workers along with the point of sale machines be done. Why? Because if this is done, the government resources, for example, PDS, can be given to all the workers throughout the country. So this is what the article says. But has government done much? Government has spoken of recognition of the trade unions, which is good step, right? Government has also spoken of increasing the industrial safety, right? This is what the government has spoken. Government also has spoken of changing the base year for minimum wage from 1965 to 2019. This is what the government has acknowledged. But what has it done? No, it has not done sufficiently well because it has not executed these laws. These are only in the form of code and draft. Right? So the idea is to increase the implementation of these laws, to have legal visibility for the laborers, legal visibility. So this is an important keyword for you, right? Also, these age-old laws, they must be changed. So this is the main focus of the article. Today's case study is from Odisha. Now, Mahanadi River is the one which not only is the home to dolphin and turtles, but also to a lot of people living in the region, right? Now, the issue here is that because of these increasing floods, cyclones, the natural disasters, and changing weather and climate, the efficiency of the whole ecosystem has reduced, right? The infrastructure that was created earlier to prevent floods, now that also was only a temporary solution. The important solution is in the form of having the participation of the natural ecosystem itself, right? So having the wetland is the important participant, right? So when wetland is created, this can act as a reservoir where water can be kept for emergency use. So drought can be handled, right? How can flood be handled, right? All the water from flood prone areas can be transmitted to these wetlands, right? This will also be an area for conservation for the local flora fauna. So this is how the water conservation, right? This effort can be initiated in this region so that the whole ecosystem gets preserved in Mahanadi Delta. This has also started, right, with Wetland International spotting some important wetlands in the region and regrowing them, right? Having embankments constructed, having salt tolerant varieties being constructed, being laid out in the areas, right? For example, if we have these salt tolerant varieties aside the sea, so if we have these salt tolerant varieties, now they will also help against the impending cyclones, right? So coastal water inundation, that will get reduced. This will also help in increasing the coastal ecosystem balance, because mangroves are very important participant in the coastal ecosystem. And this is how this case study talks of using the natural ecosystem, importance of natural ecosystem in maintaining the balance in any coastal area. So case study of the day.